Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to share some tips about charging your electric vehicle. Some of these may focus in more on Teslas, but definitely a lot of these points will apply to any electric vehicle. So with that, let's get started. So the first tip that I would like to give, and some of these will be for beginners that haven't considered what it takes to own an electric vehicle. First one is use a better route planner. That's the name of the website up here, abetterrouteplanner.com. It's a really good website. A lot of EV owners use this to plan out trips. This is one of the best planners you can use. If I go here like into settings, you can configure this with the car model that you have. So I have my car, it's the Model 3, long range all-wheel drive, and even the tire size that I have, and we'll get on that later, 19-inch and all that kind of stuff. So definitely a good idea to use this. So again, for this site, it has a whole bunch of chargers on here, even like the third-party chargers and whatnot. I picked a third-party charger as my destination. When I zoom in, you can see that little icon there. And so, for example, for this trip, I said, okay, I want to travel from Prince George to some location, and you can add more by clicking the add button and put in the location there. And once you've done all of that, you click on this little middle button. It'll take a look at what you've previously configured, what car you have, and it's going to tell you, how long it's going to take to do this trip, etc. I think this is wrong. This is probably trying to do a return trip. So, yeah, didn't delete that one. So let me do this again. So it's telling me that I probably wouldn't be able to make it from point A to point B in a single charge, and it's definitely correct. So then I would have to pick, and for whatever reasons isn't picking up level 2 chargers, of which there are in some of these other cities. But you can go ahead and plug in other stop points. If there's a charger somewhere, you can, as I showed you earlier, you can click add and put in either GPS coordinates or an address. And you can even click on the settings of that location and specify, how long you anticipate to charge there, and it will tell you. So this is a really good tool. Get used to using a better route planner. It works really well. So next tip. So get used to using PlugShare. So why I talk about PlugShare, they have an app for your mobile phone. They also have this website, plugshare.com. And this really has all the third-party chargers. And I believe Tesla superchargers are on here as well. But one thing I would really recommend is not only do you look at this map to see, it shows you which chargers are coming soon and which ones are there. You click on a charger, gives you all the details about the charger, how many kilowatts charging it is. But if you use the app, you can check in and check out even from the web thing here, so other people know how many people are charging at that location. And you can put a little note saying I'm going to be here for an hour. This is a really good app to use. It's just courteous and helps other people be able to plan out their trips as well. So definitely PlugShare is a really good app to use, to get used to. You can communicate with other drivers if they've left their car plugged in and they went off to Subway. If they've checked in through the app, you can communicate with them and say, hey, are you going to be here for long? Or, can I plug my car in? I really need to top up, 5%, and I'll plug you back in, stuff like that. So it's really handy app to use. So that's the second tip. The third tip centers around know which charging adapters that you're going to require. So, for Teslas, like Tesla Model 3 and other Teslas, if you are in an area like me, I'm in Prince George, British Columbia, there are no superchargers north of Kamloops. So all this stuff up here, none of these are superchargers here. They're all third party, BC Hydro, Ministry of Transportation, or private chargers at various businesses. So, for example, if I wanted, I bought my Model 3 down here in Vancouver somewhere, and I had to plan a trip home. By the way, I mentioned earlier, if you use PlugShare, see how this one here is gray? That usually means someone's charging. So when the color turns to gray, okay, someone's charging there. You might want to avoid it or communicate with that person to see, if they're going to be done soon, or you could plan a different route. But anyway, knowing about chargers, knowing that coming up this highway to get home to Prince George, when I bought my Model 3, I knew that there were no superchargers up this highway. And so how would I get home? And this is something I've noticed a number of people who have bought electric vehicles, the dealers and even Tesla salespeople don't tell you what you need to drive your electric car in your area, or even just to get it home. So for me, I had to get a Chatham Adapter. That's this guy right here. That's US prices, $450. I think it's like $620 Canadian. And you need this adapter if you want to travel around British Columbia and many other parts of Canada and many other parts of America where there are not superchargers. You're going to need a Chatham adapter if you're going to, charge at a decent speed. So Chatham adapter, you can charge at, like you see Boulder Creek here, and it tells you it supports Chatham and CCS, and it also has J1772. The J1772 chargers are pretty slow and not too useful when you're doing a long trip. You'll just take way too many hours. So know about your charging adapters. Probably need to get a Chatham adapter. Check out the charging stations on the route that you want to take. See what they use. And so again, for Tesla and for Nissan Leafs, Chatham adapters, what you'll need for those non-Tesla DC fast chargers. And we'll touch on knowing your chargers more in a bit. I'm going to talk a bit about Tesla charging options, but I just want to move on to my points here. So let's go to the next point. And the next point is know what is in the area that you're going to be charging. So for example, I have a video where I drove from Prince George all the way to this Boulder Creek charger over here. Now this is a rest area. Okay, so the Ministry of Transportation plopped this charger out in the middle of nowhere, and there's nothing around here. It's just on the side of a highway, and on PlugShare, oftentimes it'll tell you what's there. So the charging is free, the parking is free, but they have Wi-Fi, they have restrooms. It's open 24/7. That's another thing. PlugShare will tell you if it's like a private charger at like a car dealership or something, it may not be open 24/7. But these descriptions typically tell you what you can do there. So you want to plan that out because, if you're in the middle of nowhere, you probably want to know that there's a bathroom there because you might be stuck there for some hours. You'll want to know if there's food there because if there isn't, you'll have to bring food with you. Is there hiking? Can you do something while you're there? If you have a Tesla, you might just be stuck in your car watching Netflix or YouTube or something. So just consider that. So the next thing we're going to move on to is your tire size. I don't have a clip on this, but I mentioned earlier here in this Better Route Planner, under settings, you pick the size of your tires, your wheels, that is, which dictate the size of your tires. Because the Model 3, for example, comes stock from the factory with 18-inch Aero wheels. And then they have these summer 19-inch tires, which I currently have on right now. The 18-inch wheels will get you better range. The larger the diameter of your wheels, the less range you're going to get. And that's definitely obvious for the Model Y. And there's a lot of videos online that talk about that, 19 versus 20 versus 21-inch wheels and the different range that you're going to get. So know that if you need the range, especially in the winter time, when you lose range due to cold weather, that's really important to get a better wheel size. So just something to think about. So that's just a tip to think about for getting the best out of your range. Another one to talk about when it comes to tires, make sure that your tires air pressure is to the factory setting. So oftentimes when you open your door and you look on the door jamb, there's a sticker there that tells you what size of tires and rims your car supports. And it also tells you the optimal tire pressure. I think it's something like 42 or 45 PSI. So you want to get a tire gauge check to make sure that your tires have enough air. And that's a very important general, range/fuel economy thing to notice. A lot of big rigs, semi-trucks and stuff like that often check their tire pressure because it makes a big difference. So make sure you check your tire pressure and that it's pumped up to the right pressure. Another thing to think about is the wind resistance. Is it a really windy day? Is it stormy weather? Is it raining out? What's the temperature? So basically weather, temperature, wind, those things, and snow, they make a big difference on your range. So even in here in a Better Route Planner, in the settings, one of the items down here is the road conditions. So if I go down here, I click on road conditions, you can pick dry, rainy, snowy, heavy rain or snow. And that's one reason why I really like this website. It's going to factor in a certain factor and apply that to your range. And if it's like heavy snow you anticipate, then it'll take a certain amount off of your range. So that will affect your range. So, make sure that you use a tool like this or, factor that into your calculations. Another thing to consider is the speed at which you drive. And there's in here under a Better Route Planner, they also have that as a setting. You can specify what maximum speed you're going to drive. And I plugged in here 120 kilometers an hour. And it'll give you an idea if you're going to make it to your destination if you drive that as a maximum speed. So I made a trip from Houston, BC, right here. So that location on the map there to Prince George. And I did it on 75% charge. And if I didn't drive, 80 to 90 kilometers an hour, I wouldn't have made it home. So if I drove like the speed limit, which was about 100, I would not have made it home. So the speed that you drive does make a difference. If you find that you're losing range and you don't think you're going to make it, at least on Teslas, they often give you a warning telling you to, don't go any faster than this speed if you want to make it to your destination. So speed makes a big difference. Here's another trick, and that is something I learned when I was charging at, again, Houston, British Columbia. They had a slow J1772 charger, and I was stuck there for 3 hours. But the reason I was stuck for so long was because I left Sentry mode on. So guys, if you have a Tesla and you have Sentry mode, with the USB drive plugged in so you can record, people coming around your car. If you're charging at these charging stations and you're in your car, definitely want to turn off Sentry mode. It chopped, I'm going to say 30 to 40% of that slow charger. It used quite a bit when I was sitting there. And I noticed because on the way down to this fast charger, it only took about 2 hours to charge, but on the way back, it took 3 hours of charge to get the same amount of range added. And the only difference was the first time I turned off Sentry mode, and the second time it was so late at night, I forgot to do it. So turn off Sentry mode. That will definitely save you some energy and help you get the most out of your trip. All right, so what's the next tip? So the next tip is to use your in-car range projection tool. I'll try to go to my car, make a clip as I voice over this, but basically you click on that icon and as soon as you have plugged in the destination that you want to drive to, you can go to the trip projection tool, click on it, and it's going to show you what the estimated range is. And keep an eye on that as you drive. It will update based on the road conditions, based on your driving habits, and just give you a basic idea if you're going to make it to your destination, what kind of buffer of range you'll have when you arrive. So use that tool that comes with your vehicle in conjunction with a better route planner, but the tool that's built into your Tesla does a pretty good job. Okay, so the next tip, and this really helped me out again when I drove from Houston back to Prince George, use Autopilot. If you use Autopilot, one thing, it's sort of a double-edged sword. I don't like the fact that Autopilot only lets you go 10 kilometers over the speed limit. Otherwise, you can't use the feature. But it's also good in that it's going to make sure that you don't burn too much range. So putting it into Autopilot is going to help maintain a sort of consistent ride. And most likely, you're going to burn off a lot less. I mean, you can set the speed to even lower, which I did. I set it to like 85 kilometers an hour. Put it on Autopilot, and it just was a nice consistent ride home and saved me a lot of energy. So that's just one thing to consider if you have a Tesla. Okay, so another thing to think of, and if I can go here to ChargePoint, not all level 2 chargers are the same. So if I scroll into here and click on this J1772, it says 240 volts, 30 amps. This charger is really slow. Even if you have chargers in different cities that have the same spec, they don't always charge the same speed. I'm not sure what all the factors are. If some of them are, if something wrong with the hardware, or it's just the hardware being different, can't deliver it as well. But one note is, when you have a Tesla and you're driving to a supercharger, oftentimes the car will preheat the battery as you're approaching, and that will help you get better speed when you're charging. I don't think it does that yet for third-party chargers, and I think there's an update coming soon where it will. But in the meantime, you might want to turn, as you're approaching one of these other third-party chargers, you can tell your Tesla, just pick any old supercharger, and it should start preheating your battery. Pick a close one, so that as you get close to your third-party charger, your battery's going to be warmed up. And that's just a tip I've heard from some people. But get to know the rates of charge. Click on these chargers when you map out your trip and figure out where you're going to charge, and read through the comments of people. Some people will say, I'll give you an example of why it's important to do that. Not just for charge speed, but for reliability. There's this charger up here in Hazelton. And I was going to charge there, but when I scrolled in here, I noticed the last few people, they said it doesn't even work. This charger's terrible. It's from Sun Country. People have tried to call, and Sun Country doesn't answer the phone, and the people at the gas station couldn't really help. So, it shows on the map, but in practicality, it's not working. So, and another one that's like that is, I don't know if they still have it here. Yeah, they do, in Burns Lake. So there used to be this charger here, but right now it doesn't exist. And I made a video about that. They're in the middle of doing construction there. And even though it says coming soon, it shows it as green. And I guess that's because but it used to be a charger there. So don't assume that the chargers you previously used are still going to be there. They could be under construction, or maybe they're out of service. So just make sure you read the notes on PlugShare. And that's another good reason to use PlugShare. When I made my trip through this whole area, I stopped at various chargers and added notes to let other people know if those chargers were reliable. Okay, let's move on to the next point. So remember, in an emergency, if you planned to stop somewhere, and let's say I wanted to stop at Houston, that's the only charger between Prince George and going west that I could stop at because these other ones are not active. So what if the power is out? What if the unit's not working? I saw in the news last week, the whole power went out in this whole area for some hours. So what can you do? Well, one thing you could do is maybe backtrack and just come to somebody's house or to a gas station or something. And in an emergency, you can always use the 120 volt household plug. I know it's not the best. It'll get you something in the meantime while you're waiting for your emergency situation to clear up. You'll at least add some amount. And even then, if you can't use a household plug, maybe you can go to an RV site, use your NEMA 1450 adapter if you have one. And I strongly recommend everyone get a NEMA 1450. It's like a dryer plug style. Let's see if I can pull it up. Yeah, it's this one right here, NEMA 1450. And in a pinch, you can always plug into like an RV site and get some decent charge there. So just a hint. And what else? Be consistent with your driving habits. So if you're driving, 120 for an hour and then you slow down to 80 and you go up to 140, that's just not going to help the projection tool that's built into your car. It's not going to help it out to be able to forecast how much range you have left. So be consistent with the type of driving you do. That tool will be a little bit more accurate and help you get to your site. Another couple last important points. Plan for emergencies. If you have a Tesla Model 3, they do not come with any kind of flat tire kits or anything like that. There's not a spare tire. There's no jack. There's nothing like that. So, I have a video, which I will link down below, talking about Modern Spare, I believe is the company, where you can buy the full kit for your Model 3. But whatever EV you have, make sure you plan for emergencies. One of those is a flat tire. That's a common thing that could happen. You could have a slow air leak. So, you probably should have a small air compressor with your emergency kit. You can have a dead 12 volt battery. So you probably should have like a small little booster or at least booster cable. So for some reason your 12 volt battery dies, you'll still need a boost. So plan for that. And entertainment. I talked about like this site here. If it's in the middle of the winter time and it's cold out, you're not going to be trudging around snow and freezing cold weather. So if you're charging here, what are you going to do? So if you have a Tesla, you've got built-in entertainment. If you don't, maybe bring a little tablet, or you have to use your phone or audiobooks or something like that. Plan for keeping yourself entertained. Another one is for charging in the wintertime, make sure you bring a little shovel. Oftentimes, you can see these if I bring up a picture here. This in the wintertime, these things are covered in snow. You have to dig them out, dig a path to get there. So let's just, bring a little shovel with you if you're charging in the winter. And what else? So last tip would be, when it comes to Teslas, not all Teslas are the same. The standard range plus does not charge as fast as the all-wheel drive and as the performance. The all-wheel drive and the performance editions, they'll charge faster. And the charger for these cars are in the car itself, not in the adapter. So let's talk a little bit about that. So I've made some videos here. This one's called Connector, Tesla Model 3 Connector versus Vehicle Charging Limits. And the Model 3 Standard Range Plus has an onboard maximum of 32 amp charging. So that's when you plug in your AC adapter. The mobile connector, it can't go any faster than 32 amps. So no sense in getting an electrician to put in, 50 amps or something like that. If you have a Standard Range Plus, it won't be able to use more than 32. The Model 3 S and X, the long range or performance, they have an onboard max of 48 amps. So just something to know the limits of your car. And then, another interesting thing is I made, I think, a video about this. So the portable charger that comes with the Model 3, it only goes up to 32 amps. That's this unit here. And that's the one that comes with the car, where you can plug in different adapters. One of them being the NEMA 1450 or the 120 volt or whatever. So if I get this, if I have this portable charger that came with the car, and I get the adapter for the NEMA 1450, and I compare that to buying this thing called corded mobile connector, which looks exactly the same. This is a picture of the corded mobile connector. It looks like the portable charger you get with your car, but it's not the same. The one that comes with your car, you can swap out these plugs. They just pop it out and pop in a different plug type. This is all just hard coded in. You cannot replace this part of the plug. It's only this style NEMA 1450. But the difference is this hard coded plug that you can buy separately charges faster, because its maximum is 40 amps. So it's a difference of 40 kilometers an hour versus 50 kilometers an hour. So a 25% increase. So again, these are all just something to think about. I wouldn't care about getting this corded mobile connector if I have a standard range plus, because it can't go faster than 32 amps. But if I have an all-wheel drive or Model X or S, you might want to do that. If you need that extra amount of charging and it works for the area that you live in, you don't have, other chargers or whatever, maybe it's worth it. So these are all things to consider. And then of course the charger that comes with like the wall charger, that's even faster. I believe that's like 11 kilowatt versus 7 kilowatt, which is the NEMA 1450. So even faster. I get like 70 something kilometers an hour with the built-in wall, or not built-in, but the wall connector that you can buy, but it's expensive. So you have to decide for your budget, how fast do you need to get that charge, how much money you're willing to pay. These are all considerations. And I have a little video here talking about charging options in your garage. The wall charger, for example, it's 11 kilowatt, 48 amps, 70 kilometers an hour. The portable wall charger that comes with your car, it goes up to 45 kilometers an hour, 7 kilowatts, 32 amps. The household adapter that you just swap out the plug adapter for your 110 volt, it only goes 1 kilowatt at 12 amps, 6 kilometers an hour. So, these are all things to consider about charging. I talked about the corded, what's it called here? Corded mobile connector, which is sort of an oddball item, but you can get it and it's faster than the portable charger that comes with the car with an NEMA 1450 adapter. This whole unit's faster. But again, you're gonna pay like $600 for this thing. So finally, this chart kind of gives a breakdown of the different plug styles. This is kind of American-based miles per hour, how many amps, and the style of the plug. So you can see here for your typical household plug, it only goes up to 12 amps, 3 to 5 miles an hour. These are sort of uncommon styles, an arc welder, 11 miles an hour. Arc welder compressor, 15 miles an hour. This is sort of an older style dryer, which is not very common, 22 miles an hour. Another sort of weird dryer style. This one down here is the most typical NEMA 1450. This is most current dryer styles for 2020, and in recent years, as well as RV sites, they'll use this NEMA 1450. And you can buy a kit from Tesla that has like all of these styles, so that if you're in an emergency, you can just swap out that plug. But remember, no matter how many amps the place has that you're using, if you're using the portable charger from Tesla, it only goes up to 32 amps.